Hi, I'm Elaine Harding. Welcome to my blog stampwithelaine.com. I'm a sucker for box dies, and this new Perfect Parcel die has a quirky closure, and it took me a while to figure it out and how it came together. So I wasted a lot of cardstock. Thankfully it was retired cardstock and I finally cracked it. This is the normal size box. And in this video, I'll give you some hints and tips on making the box smaller and larger. The box can fold flat, so if you're making them in bulk, it won't take up much room, and they're really simple to assemble once you know how. The quirky closure is that these flaps tuck into the side like that, and the bottom interlocks. The stamp set is made out of red rubber, and if you purchase them together with the dies, it will save you 10%. There are 9 dies altogether in the set, so you have your box base, and to create the box base you'll need to cut 2 of those. There are 2 label dies and a tag topper die here, 2 aperture dies. There's this one here and this long one here, which is about the same width of the box. Open work die and also the base underneath it, plus one that is a stitched edge die. I made these for a display at a team meeting, and you can see this was made with the Magnolia DSP, and you can see how there's a flap here, there's a lip to the box here, and that basically overlaps slightly, so then you can shut the box. Your cardstock needs to be at least 4 1/8 inches by 6 inches. Let me measure that. Yep, 6 inches. That's really, really tight fit. So I've cut 2 pieces, and now in order to make the box smaller, you need to bring in your trimmer, and you need the score line here and the straight edge at the top, and depending on how big you want your box, you align that score line with the score line on your scoreboard. So say if I want it at 2 1/8 inches, I align the score line at 2 1/8, and then add a bit for the tab. The tab is 1/4 inches, so 2 1/8 add 1/4 inches will be 2 3/8. So I align that at 2 3/8 and cut. Okay, then at the 2 1/8 I need to score. Then you take this end and align it up with the score line on your newly scored line, and then trim away the excess. And then you can repeat for this other piece. So all you have to do, now that you've got the template from there, is just follow this one. Burnish your score lines. You need to put a score line on the one that you've just cut. There's a score line there and also one here. Now this one goes this way. Do the same for this side. Now for the assembly. So put a dollop of glue there. And it's important that you have these score lines marry up with the score line on this piece, and that your tabs, both your tabs here, are pointing in the same direction. So line up the score line and allow it a few seconds to bond. Fold it over. Two triangles pointing downwards, that's the top of the box. This is the base of the box with the triangular flaps on. So you want to put glue on the underside of the flap. And then you need to have these two flaps with the jagged edge pointing toward the center, and you're closing it and pushing it to lie flat like so, and then leave it to bond for a bit, and then pop it back in and it will close automatically. Then these two sides fold inwards like that. That folds over and tucks into the sides like this. So there's your smaller box. Now, in order to keep that rigid, you may have to cut another piece that is 2 1/8 inch square, which is 5.4 centimeters. Pop it inside like that, and then tuck that in. To make the box larger, you need to determine what size or what length you want your box to be. So I've cut mine at 4 1/8 inches by 7 1/4 inches to make this size box. To place your die, the two adjacent edges here and here are flush with your cardstock. You need to secure it with washi tape to make sure it doesn't move. And then put a piece of washi tape right where this curvature here dips. And that is to show you that you don't want to put your cutting plate beyond that mark there. So when you're running it through the big shot, this is your top cutting plate, you want to place it there. Okay, I'll show you my well-used plates. So now you've done that, take your scissors and snip off this bit here. Hold on firmly to your cardstock because that is the cutting edge and you don't want to lose that. So place it on top of your top cutting plate, alright? And then now you want to move that cardstock down to where the tabs are, and you need to align where the cutting edge is so that it's flush with the top. Then more washi tape and wrap it around. You're just trying not to make the paper move. Pop my bottom cutting plate back on, and this time move the cardstock further down, and you don't want your plate to extend beyond this line where the arch is starting. So this time you place your cutting plate where the tabs are, about 1/4 of an inch in, like so, and then run it through the big shot. So here's my elongated box, and now all you have to do is just trim the rest of it off. So theoretically that should be just straight down, and this will be straight down as well. And there will be missing score lines here, but it doesn't really matter because when you go to burnish the lines anyway, that will reinforce the gap where the score line wasn't included. You repeat it for the other piece, okay? And then once you've done that, you make sure that both are the same size, because it needs to be really accurate for the box to join together, and thankfully this one is. So again, burnish all your lines. So assemble the box. Remember to line up the score lines and not the tabs. Now if you wish to embellish the box, like so, with this stitch die, don't do what I did, and I did this separately, and then one ended on the bottom and one at the top. Make sure that the curves here are at the bottom, because that's the top of your box where these two triangles are. And then pop this on your box and run it through the big shot, and then repeat and do the same for the next panel. So I'll do that off camera and I'll be back. You also need to be mindful of which way up the swirls go. My tip is that as long as the writing on the die is facing the same way, so if you're feeding the cardstock through this way, then the Stampin' Up would be visible and the right way up. And if you do the same on that one, then you can be rest assured that they'll both be facing in the same direction. So once you've done that, you can assemble the rest of the box. So apply adhesive on the tab. Now I tend to use the wet glue. Some of you might want to use tear and tape, but that adds sort of bulk to the box and it just doesn't sit as well. That's why I opted for using glue. If you put a silicone mat underneath, you know, it will just protect your work surface anyway. Leave it to bond for a minute. Now the other word of caution is that if you're making this elongated one, and because you're not putting even pressure on the die, if you do make too many, it will eventually, you'll end up making your die, can you see that? It's sort of going upwards, it's bending upwards, so it will warp your die. Do the odd one, but you know, I wouldn't recommend it for a class. I'd just go for the normal box. That's had time to dry, so let's upend it so that top of the box, which is at the bottom, and then these two little triangles here, you put glue on the inside. And then close and fold at the same time. Pinch it to make sure it's properly adhered. Now the interlocking mechanism here won't work as well because you've resized the box, so my recommendation is cut an extra piece of cardstock the same size as the base of your box so that you can put it in as an insert. Now you can either glue it or leave it loose so that you can still pack the boxes flat, or if you only make the one, you can just easily glue it down. Do you know what? I'm going to glue mine because it's much sturdier that way. So there's the normal size box, there's the resized one, the normal one with the open fretwork there, and the larger box. I hope you've enjoyed today's tutorial, and join me again next time. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'd really appreciate it, and you'll find all the supply links below this video in the Show More section. Bye!